Greetings folks, Zazubaar here with another movie review. As I'm sure you've all realized, I am what you call a reviewer, and if you haven't, learn to read the video title. As a reviewer, I always try to be critical, objective, articulate, and well-informed about my subject of review before I start scripting out my thoughts. My review of King Kong Lives will be no different. I'll try to be critical of the film, objective while reviewing it, and of course, I've done my homework on the film before beginning my work on it. That part is where my general surprise came from. Before even typing the title of King Kong Lives into Google, I was aware as a well-connected fan of King Kong that the film was not popular, both critically and financially. In fact, proving how unsuccessful the film was financially, one of the actors received a check for his cut of the box office gross that totaled to 3 cents. No, I'm not joking. He's never cashed it in and instead has it hanging on his wall next to a poster of the film, revering it as little more than a joke. Many Kong fans share that sentiment with him, as well as many critics like those behind RottenTomatoes.com, where the film holds a rating of 0%, and where several critics have called the film extremely unnecessary, dull, and laughably bad. And after reading through all this, preparing for my review, I've got to say, I'm not entirely with the gang of critics and fans who call this movie awful. Yes, folks, I've got to say, I enjoy King Kong Lives, and certainly don't think it's bad enough to warrant a 0%. As a monster fan, it's hard for me not to enjoy this film. The visual effects and monster suits are well done in my opinion, Kong looks appropriately large, powerful, and fearsome, and when he and his mate Lady Kong are on screen, they feel like real creatures and not like dudes in suits. One particularly impressive visual feat to me is that the filmmaker has actually made size-accurate models of Kong and Lady Kong's body parts to interact with the human actors. Like one scene where we see Linda Hamilton's character walking on a balcony over the comatose Kong, and one of the opening shots where Kong is lying down in the institute being monitored by medical equipment. It allows for a much more organic look to seeing the two on screen together, when otherwise it would have had to have been either rear projection or blue screen, with Peter Elliott as Kong in the actual suit having to be shot separately. This would have looked very unconvincing in 1986, but would have saved the film money, which it did not have a ton of. So I'm glad that the filmmakers decided to go for a more practical look to the film. In fact, I think the whole opening scene in the lab is very well done in terms of directing and music, which both denigrate as the film progresses. The wide-angle shots give the whole thing a sense of scope, while the music provides that epic sense of wonder that is essential for a good King Kong film. However, I must admit that while I do definitely enjoy this film more than most people, I am aware and agree with most of the items on its laundry list of flaws. For one, the plot is extremely contrived. Ignoring the fact that Kong surviving being bombarded with chain gun fire and falling from the top of the World Trade Center is absurd, although certainly interesting if handled correctly, which it isn't. The convenient discovery of a female ape of Kong species in the jungles of Borneo, occurring directly after it's revealed that he needs a blood transfusion, is downright lazy. I already hate the idea of Kong having a female counterpart that he can actually have a relationship with, since it diminishes part of the point of the original King Kong story, which, as a fan, makes me angry. Since originally, Kong was supposed to be this cold, unmatched, fearsome creature that was unquestioned in his rule over Skull Island, and worshipped as a god. Look, I'm not saying I personally know any gods, but I think I can safely assume that they wouldn't be so quick to fall in love with another creature of their species, when it had always been implied that Kong's never seen a member of his species besides himself. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Wouldn't be the first time, so excuse my little fanboy rant there. Since I guess I should just throw up my hands and say, okay, this is just there for us to have some comic relief and make an attempt at making us care about this movie. Since the dull cast and slow, cliched plot are failing at even slightly accomplishing that. Linda Hamilton can barely emit enough energy in her delivery to make herself care about the plot, and often sounds like she's reading from a script, which to me is a waste of talent, since Linda Hamilton is a great actress that usually brings a lot of charisma to the screen, as we've seen in the Terminator films and Dante's Peak. And ironically, she also turned in a good performance 1 year later in the Beauty and the Beast television series, and given King Kong's roots, I find that very funny. The film only briefly feels like a King Kong film, with its recycled footage from the '76 remake of King Kong, of which King Kong Lives is a sequel. Oh, did I forget to mention that? Don't worry, because I think the film did too, since, you know, no one from the first film seems to care that Kong is alive. However, once Kong and Lady Kong are on the run from the military together, the film devolves into a typical giant monster on the loose story, with the monsters evading the military, attacking small rural towns, and getting gunned down in the end by tanks. At this point, Kong can be replaced by any other monster and the plot will be no different. However, to me at least, it's cliched, Monster on the Loose turn is what makes the film enjoyable. At this point, it's just about how much entertaining explosions and destruction the filmmakers can put on screen, which they do provide in sufficient quantities for me to say that at least the film isn't a complete bore. And I can think of films that are, which to me makes King Kong Lives better than they are. I have yet to see these films getting a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not to attack the people on Rotten Tomatoes too harshly, since reviews I read there of the film were certainly accurate in that the film is unnecessary, at some points laughably bad. Is this the worst film ever made to carry the name King Kong? In my opinion, yes. Since again, I do find it entertaining and the special effects well done for 1986. King Kong Lives to me truly exemplifies a guilty pleasure, which is why I'm giving it a 2 out of 5.